a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have told you never bet against America, because we've looked at the last 30, 40, 50 years of history. America always pulls through. I'm not so confident about that statement anymore.
Hey everybody, I'm Cameron Kasky.
I'm Tim Miller, and this is FYPod. I couldn't be more excited to have a new guest today, and also to be here with Sporty Spice Cam in a Mets jersey, really kind of getting butch. And also we've got a new guest that we've been lovingly calling Prof G's Cam, but he also has a real name. It's Ed Elson. What's going on, man?
Good to see you. Thank you for having me. I should have brought the jersey out today.
Yeah, you should have. And you might be my favorite of Prof G's co-hosts. I know I told you offline you were my second favorite, but you might be my favorite. I don't know. He's got 3 different ones. He's got as many podcasts
That'll
as
be
me.
a compliment if I were your favorite co-host of all podcasters.
But
that's not that much of a compliment, Tim.
It's pretty good. It's Jesse Tarloff and Kara Swisher, so it's pretty
Jesse
good competition.
Tarloff, Kara Swisher, that's right. Okay.
It's pretty good competition.
I'll take it.
But I found myself more drawn to your pod as we enter the Donald Trump recession, because like you're learning me things that I don't know, rather than listening to his politics talk. But so for people who don't know you, who've not been listening to, the Prof G Markets pod, give us a little first date, like, TLDR, who are you, et cetera.
Yeah, well, my name is Ed Elson. I co-host Prof G Markets, which is a podcast that I do with Scott Galloway. You might know Prof G, Professor Galloway, the marketing guru, business expert.
You're from Wisconsin?
From London, moved to the US. So I consider myself an American now. My parents are American.
Great timing.
So I have the US passport. So I haven't talked about where we as a collective are headed. And usually that means America. I consider
You're probably headed to El Salvador.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So for those of our listeners who don't know who Scott Galloway is, he's a professor of money.
He's the only one grinding in the fucking content mines more hours a day than me. I mean, bro is out there content creating.
What does he think about the tariffs?
So Scott is generally quite liberal. He would
hell yeah, my fucking man.
Left.
Shout out Prof G.
He doesn't like the tariffs, but that's not saying much. He is a professor of NYU, a professor of marketing. He's written a ton of books. Some of them have been super successful. You might have heard of The Four, which was one of his first books on big tech and what big tech is doing to our society. He sort of, antitrust was a topic that was at large, but he sort of popularized it. He's also been talking a lot. You might have seen his TikToks and Reels talking about the struggles of young men. That's one of his big topics that he talks a lot about, and we do a lot of research into that. He talks about politics a little bit, mostly economics, mostly markets. That's what we do on our podcast. We try to, have a no mercy, no malice view on everything. We try to be unbiased. We both land, I would say, left of center, ultimately at the end of the day. But we talk about anything that relates to money. And Scott has a proven track record. He's gotten rich himself. He's written a lot of books on this. He wrote this book most recently, The Algebra of Wealth, just describing what people need to do in order to get their money and their finances in order. I have less of a track record, but I'm like his Padawan. I'm sort of learning alongside him, asking the questions, and then slowly but surely establishing.
I kind of want to trade cams. Like, you can tell already that Ed comes prepared. He does his research.
Girl, Monday I literally had a legal pad. How could you be more prepared?
Okay, yeah, that's a good start. I'm of the view that things are about to get really fucking bad. Like, I think that the market is over confident about Trump pulling back on some of these tariffs, and I think that we're probably about to hit an additional stock market dip here once like reality of how bad this is going to be sets in for people. I just think a lot of people are pretty sanguine about the seriousness of what's going on economically. So I guess part A, do you agree with that? Like, do you see storm clouds on the horizon? And B, if you do agree with that, like, what should I put my little my little basket, because I don't know, maybe the S&P 500 is wrong if it's got to have a correction down towards the 11% that you were talking about of earnings multiples, etc.
Yeah, this is an important question. It's probably the ultimate question of our time when it comes to investing in markets.
Look at me, Cameron. I asked the ultimate question of our time. What have you been doing?
Ultimate question. Look, there's no real way to model out what Trump is going to do. And we have seen this play out. We can't predict whether there's a recession on the horizon. I mean, we can look at the surveys, and the surveys would say 60% percentage chance that this year we will see a recession. We're increasingly seeing it in earnings calls. 40% of companies are now reporting and saying the word recession in their earnings calls. So recession is certainly on the horizon. And the chance, as you said, that the S&P is too, and the markets are too optimistic about these tariffs is certainly a possibility. And that's what we have to grapple with right now. A year ago or 2 years ago, I would have told you never bet against America, because we've looked at the last 30, 40, 50 years of history. America always pulls through. I'm not so confident about that statement anymore.
Fuck.
And what we're seeing at the moment at the institutional level, these large hedge funds and these large banks and these massive capital allocators, they are rotating out of US equities, out of American stocks by their largest margin ever. That's what we saw in March. Allocations to US equities among financial institutions had their largest ever drop. And where are they relocating into? They're going into Europe. So that's why the European stock market is, year to date, up 18%. You look at the S&P, which is down so far year to date, 6%. This is why we saw this massive sell-off in US stocks and also US debt. This is what we saw with these, you might have seen on Twitter, everyone freaking out about the yield on the 10-year treasury, which skyrocketed, which is an indication that people were selling off US treasuries, American debt. And also, we're seeing a sell-off in the dollar. The dollar has been massively weakening this year. So it's this trifecta of badness for the American economy. And the question, of course, is where is the money going? What we have seen so far is that the money, as of today, what are we, April 30th, 2025, the money appears to be going to Europe. But I think the thing to highlight here is that this is going to be, if this is true, if the world is shifting away from the US, the investment world specifically, it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. We're talking at trillions of dollars. This is not like, Bank of America suddenly says, oh, we don't like the US anymore, liquidate, move to Europe. No, this is going to be an extremely long process. It's going to take years, possibly even decades, to fully play out. So I think the thing that you need to be thinking right now, 2 years ago, I would have said S&P 500, invest, no brainer. I think we now need to be a little bit more cautious. And the thing you need to be thinking about is diversifying your portfolio across foreign markets as well. You should be thinking about buying the European stock index. Maybe you want to think about buying companies in China, in India, maybe even in Vietnam. Whatever it is, I think it's worth thinking about getting an understanding of these foreign markets, trying to understand what the companies there are doing, looking at those indexes, looking at those price to earnings multiples. And maybe you want to start diversifying a way out. But what
about shorting?
Not shorting. And certainly not selling today and then just switching everything and going all in on Europe. Because again, we don't know. That's the thing with Trump. You never actually fucking know.
Yeah.
But
if I did want to bet against America, hypothetically, let's say I wanted to make a bet. Not everything. I'm not like, putting my mortgage on it or anything, but with my messing around money, wanted to make a bet against America, you would say just generalized Europe stocks, or is there something else? Gold.
You can get into gold. I don't think you're going to make a real return. Ray Dalio would disagree with me. gold is considered to be it's sort of the doomsday asset. When everything's going to shit in the world, people buy gold. And I think the implicit thinking there is, I mean, you got to think, why are people buying gold? I mean, they say, because we don't trust America anymore. We don't trust China anymore. We don't trust Europe anymore. So now we have to buy gold. My question is, what are you going to fucking do with that gold? If it really is doomsday, if it's apocalypse now, then now you have gold? Yeah. If the stakes are that high, don't you want food? Don't you want water? Don't you want shelter? Okay. I mean, so like these are the kinds of questions McDonald's. I would be asking. So, yeah, right. So I'm not a huge fan of gold, but others would disagree with me. That's just my personal perspective. I don't think it makes that much sense. But yeah, the answer is, as of now, I would say buy a diversified index fund in probably Europe and China. That would be my first bet. I haven't made these moves myself because
I was going to say, Ed, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but part of me is wondering, gee, so this guy comes in to my fucking country from Europe, and with the platform that he's been given by some guy named Prof G, doesn't even have any fucking hair. He's telling us to invest in Europe. That doesn't sound a little funky to you, Ed? You're not necessarily on the Queen's payroll.
If you listened to the podcast a year ago, I would have been telling you vociferously invest in the US. I'm only saying this now because I'm watching what is happening in terms of at the institutional level. I mean, you look at what retail investors like you and I are doing. Actually, retail investors,
like me and
regular
you.
People.
Cam is not an investor. Cam is a retail spender, a retail purchaser of clothes.
He's a consumer.
I literally have run out of outfits for FYPod, and I now have to borrow my cousin's clothes because I've used every outfit that I have. And we're like,
we're going to have Ed's going to put you on a budget. Okay. Ed, could we do that as like a kind of payment for offering you this platform? You could just sort of review
I'll
Cam's.
I'll take a commission.
Review.
I don't have indulgences. Ever since I stopped drugs, like I don't really have shit that I spend. I read fucking books.
Oh, maybe you should go back to the drugs then, Cam.
We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, look, the institutional divestment away from the US is something that you need to acknowledge. And my point was, regular people are actually buying stocks because they're seeing the dip and the correction that's happening, and they're going and buying because they're like, we think it's going to go back up. And maybe they're right, but what I would just point you to is look at what the big institutions are doing. Look at what the big banks are doing, the big hedge funds. They're all getting out of America, not overnight, but slowly and surely. And my point is, this is the first time that that's happened in the history of modern America. We literally have never seen this. So that's why I say, and I wouldn't have said this to you a year or 2 years ago. I mean, Europe is slow and dead for many reasons. I mean, there's a reason I left the UK, which is I didn't think that the prospects in the UK were that great. There's a massively un-entrepreneurial culture in the UK that extends throughout Europe, and it is a problem, and it does affect European markets. But what I am simply addressing is that something happened after tariffs. And what happened was big investors, the big capital allocators, they got freaked out, and now they are slowly but surely rotating out of America and into Europe. I am simply identifying a trend that is happening.
And is part of that the fact that other countries are just never going to see us as a reliable trading partner again?
It's a huge part of it. And in fact, China is now gallivanting around Europe. They are relieving the sanctions on the EU, and they've sent their trade delegations into Europe to Hungary and to Germany and to Sweden, trying to rekindle those trade relationships and say, hey, look, I know you guys didn't trust us in the past, but look, can you really trust America right now? So we want to renormalize these relationships.
Paving out the Belt Road, baby.
Yeah, I've got one more marketing idea for you, Ed, before we go to the Boomer mailbag. I do have to observe that as kind of a audio signal of the fact that Cam has no money. He's like clinking together his 2 quarters left that he has to his name right now. It's like clink, clink, and so that's if you're hearing something, that's what it is. My idea for you is instead of using Andrew Tate as your foil, we use Scott Bessent as your foil. I mean, this is not a manly man. This is a poofter that lives in a Barbie house in Charleston. And maybe the young men of our society could be like, I could be like Ed, responsible, investing in ETFs, budgeting, or I could be like Scott Bessent, humiliating myself at the altar of Donald Trump. It's really sad that first gay Treasury Secretary is the worst Treasury Secretary. It's really bad for our people.
Well, actually, what's interesting is that Scott Bessent, is the least stupid of the fools right now. What he is doing is advising. He's the only one who's telling Trump to sort of tone it back. So I think, the two things I would say to you. One, Cam doesn't know who Scott Bessent is, so I would imagine that many people don't know who Scott Bessent is.
Got it, yeah.
So in terms of a foil to compare against for young men specifically, I would argue Andrew Tate is the household name.
Yeah.
And the only people who really know who Scott Bessent is are the people who are watching the news.
But maybe we could ruin the MAGA brand with bros by making Scott Bessent the face of it. Nobody wants to be like this affected fool.
Yes, and I'm willing to run with that. However, I think that the MAGA brand is on its way to death and destruction anyway.
Yeah.
What we've seen so far is just so many levels of crazy. You can't even begin to describe it. And of course, this Trump guy is a total phenomenon. He seems to be impenetrable in a lot of ways, but I think there is a limit. And I think that what he's doing and the fact that he has so much power and he's using it in this administration and the destruction he is levying on both the stock market and also the Main Street economy. This is the thing. You can be MAGA pro-Trump all you want, but if your business goes bankrupt and you have to lay off all your employees or you get laid off, which is what is going to happen with these tariffs, it's not a debate. It's going to happen. It's already happening. We're already seeing that this is one of the worst job markets to graduate into if you're a graduating senior in college. We have all of these companies who are paring back their hiring because the markets are in it's total paralysis right now. If all of that happens, can you really be pro-Trump after that? Realistically?
Well, the morons can.
They'll figure it out. They were pro-Trump after the attempt to overthrow the Capitol. So I'm sure the money stuff, which I feel like it's harder to wrap your head around, and therefore it's easier to kind of.
Well, except if they get poor.
Yeah, but you know how MAGA is. They'll convince them that it's the fucking commies.
I agree with you, but I'm not talking about fucking the crazy 60-year-old person who's like brainwormed from Fox who's going to the rally. I'm talking about like the 28-year-old bro who like thought it was cool.
Yeah, he saw him on Full Send. He saw him on Nelk Boys. He saw him on Theo Von. This guy's kind of a dude. He hooks up with chicks. That's sick. At a certain point, that runs out. It really, the half-life is tiny on that. We'll see. And I'm not. You're the political strategist, not me. So maybe I'm wrong. But my sense is, when you follow these people's advice and you follow them into this foxhole that ends up blowing up, I think at a certain point you feel upset and you feel lied to and you feel angry about it. And I think that there's only so much bullshit that people can take. And there's no debating this. The guy is feeding them bullshit. And if you don't believe me, look at the stock market, look at the bond market. They are the adults in the room. They're telling you what the ground truth is.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that conversation. I love Ed. It goes on, and we get into a bunch of other fun stuff. We talk about the manosphere. Ed gives personal finance advice to young people. He gives investment advice to me. We make some jokes at Cam's expense. It's great. So go watch the full interview at our FYPod page. The link's right here below. Or just search FYPod on YouTube. And subscribe to that page, too, if you're a fan of the show. And while you're at it, go find Prof G Markets and check out Ed and Prof G. If you're into more financial podcasting, it's a zag from what we're doing over here. So if you're into that, go check them out, too. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe to FYPod. Subscribe to the Bulwark. We'll see you next week.